Former Miss Iraq just slammed Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden on his Iran policy, and it was beautiful to see. She exposes the idiocy and moral sickness of the Obama-Biden Iran policy in one tweet. Yesterday, we reported on the horrible execution of Navid Afkari, an Iranian wrestling champion, by Iran for the crime of protesting against the Islamic regime at a street protest. Iran just executed Navid Afkari, an Iranian wrestling champion. Why? For the crime of protesting against the Islamic regime in the streets. In response, Joe Biden tweeted, quote, "Iran's cruel execution of Navid Afkari is a travesty. No country should arrest, torture, or execute peaceful protesters or activists. Iran must free its other political prisoners, including Nasrin Sotoudeh, and release unjustly detained Americans," end quote. Sounds good, right? However, the sad irony is that under the Obama-Biden presidency, while they supported the Egyptian public's street revolution that allowed the radical Sunni Muslim Brotherhood organization to topple U.S. ally Hosni Mubarak, at that same exact time, Obama and Biden turned a blind eye as Iran brutally shot innocent protesters in the streets of Iran during their public Green Revolution. The Obama-Biden team let the same repressive Islamic regime of Iran kill and torture their civilians at that time without taking any action. Biden's tweet about Afkari's execution rings hollow, highlighting the hypocrisy of the Obama administration's Iran policies that he, Biden, wants to reinstate if he becomes president. Former Miss Iraq called out Biden's hypocrisy in her Twitter response. Quote, "You literally gave Iran billions of dollars under the Obama administration and empowered them to take over Iraq, Syria, and Yemen. This man and thousands of others across the Middle East would still be alive today if you fought the regime instead of making deals with terrorists. What do you expect?" End quote. This is a good time to highlight the underlying fallacy of the Obama-Biden policy, believing that Iran wants to join the family of nations and live peacefully among the nations. Hence, the desire of their Iran policy was and will be, if Biden becomes president, to continue to appease the evil regime of Iran and work with it. We will let history judge whether that is just naivete or evil. However, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu and U.S. President Donald Trump have held to a policy of Iran based on a much firmer grasp on reality. They believe that the Islamic regime of Iran does not wish to live peacefully with other nations. Rather, as reality proves, it aims to destabilize and take over other nations out of the religious obligation to spread Shia Islam around the world. The Iranian Islamic regime is not a regime to talk with peacefully. Rather, it's a regime that will only stop its aggressive behavior against its own citizens in the region and the world if it is stopped using a dual diplomatic and military approach of strength, not of appeasement. As Fred Fleitz, president of the Center for Security Policy, who served in 2018 as deputy assistant to the president and to the chief of staff of the National Security Council, wrote recently, quote, "The maximum pressure strategy has succeeded, even though Iran continues to stubbornly refuse to participate in negotiations in an agreement to replace the JCPOA. Iran's economy is suffering under unprecedented economic pressure from U.S. sanctions, leading to protests against the regime in Iran. Protests against the Iranian government have also taken place in Iraq, Lebanon, and Syria, as U.S. sanctions have denied Tehran funds for pro-Iran militant groups and political allies in these countries. This includes members of Hezbollah, Iran's terrorist proxy in Lebanon, going without paychecks," end quote. If Biden wins the presidency, we will see a return to the appeasement approach of Obama, which will empower the evil Islamic regime of Iran and be a disaster for peaceful Iranians, as well as for Israel, Middle Eastern countries threatened by Iran, and the whole freedom-loving world. A Biden presidency is a disaster, a restart of the Obama presidency disastrous policies. I hope Americans vote smartly for a policy of strength, not appeasement.
Pulse of Israel, frontline videos from the Holy Land. Support our work by donating today.